Good day, Lena. I'm Tsidi Sotlaka. I'll be presenting a business studies lesson on team performance and conflict management. This topic is covered in term 2 under the main topic business role. Let us now look at the breakdown of the topic. We have 3 subtopics or units, which is team performance, conflict management, grievance, and dealing with difficult employees. Now, Unit 1 is based on team performance. As I said, this is about business role. Now, business role means the role that will be played by a manager in ensuring that the organization goes very well and achieves their objectives. And in the process, they'll have to form teams. So by the end of Unit 1, you should be able to discuss the criteria of a successful team performance. You should be able to discuss the characteristics of a successful team. And you should be able to discuss the stages of team development. Now, let us look at the first aspect, which is the criteria of a successful team. Criteria of a successful team, guys, we are basically referring to guidance. For a team to be successful, these are the guidance that should be followed or standards that should be followed. And remember that the person who will basically look into starting a team will start a team in the business because of a project. And a project is something that is temporary. So for the project to be successful, we should look at the following criteria. And the first criteria now becomes interpersonal attitudes and behavior. To say, when we form a team, the main issue here is to achieve a common goal. So for our team to be successful, team members should portray interpersonal attitudes and behavior. And what do we mean by that? We basically are saying team members must have a positive attitude of support and motivation towards each other. And they must be committed towards achieving a common goal. So basically, interpersonal attitudes and behavior is talking about ensuring that within the team there's a culture of motivation and support for each other's efforts. And then we look into the second criteria, which is shared values. So shared values, there we are talking about team members should show respect. Team members should show respect towards each other's members despite the differences. So team members should respect their fellow members, and then they should show respect for the knowledge and the skills of other members. And then we further look into another criteria, which is communication. Team members must have a good communication so that quick decisions can be made. For a team to be successful, communication is vital. So it is important always to ensure that team members master the way of communicating so that time can be saved when it comes to making decisions. And then they must continuously talk and review the progress so that the mistakes can be rectified. So each and every time they have completed a task, it's important that they talk and review so that mistakes can be rectified. And then we also have a criteria called collaboration. Now, all team members, with collaboration, we're talking about team members being involved. So all team members should take part in decision making for the team to be successful, because remember, they bring different skills and knowledge. And then furthermore, there needs to be goals need to be clearly set, and so that all members know exactly what is to be achieved. And then this is how, and we further look into now another aspect, which is now the characteristics of a successful team. Now, let me talk about this so that we understand each other. For you learners to understand characteristics of a successful team, it's important to understand the criteria. As I said, criteria are guidelines and standards for a successful team. So for those teams to characterize success, they need to know the criteria. So basically, we'll look at the first characteristic, which is successful teams share a common goal. And when we talk about this, we talked about it in the form of a criteria, which was interpersonal attitudes and behavior, to say they share a common goal. So for a team to be successful, they need to characterize or here have this character which we call sharing a common goal. Number two, there is a climate of respect and honesty. For a team to be successful, they need to show respect and be honest to each other. Another aspect, which is team members enjoy open communication. We talked about it as a criteria to say we have a criteria called communication. So for the team to be successful again, they need to show a character of showing open communication. And then the other one is the balance of knowledge and skills to achieve the objective. So that's why we talked about collaboration. And I said that when we collaborate, we include different people with their different abilities. That's why the balance of knowledge means the balance of different skills, so that the team can be able to achieve the goals that were set. And then we'll look into now assessment on criteria of a successful team. You may be asked to discuss the criteria of a successful team performance. And what normally happens is that you will maybe say collaboration. And then when you say collaboration, you will be awarded 2 marks if it's section B. And when you explain that collaboration means, for instance, the balance of knowledge, and it means everyone being involved in taking decisions, that explanation will give you 1 mark if that is section B. That is section B. But when you move to section C, if you do the same thing, you give us the collabo and you also explain, then you'll get 2 marks if it's section C. And then you may also be asked to identify the criteria of a successful team from a given scenario or statement. And then you may also further be asked to explain the characteristics of a successful team. That way, basically these questions are 8 marks, 6 marks, 8 marks questions. And then we'll look now at stages of team development. Stages of team development. As I said, we form teams in a business so that we deal with projects. And I said projects are temporary activities that are taken by the business. So teams need to be formed by the managers so that those projects can be dealt with. And when a team is developed, this is what the business has to go through. The first one is that the first stage of team development is the stage called forming. So during forming stage, individuals obtain information and they form impressions about each other. So what basically happens here, we see team members exchanging contacts and getting to give information about where they are from, all that information, because the team is only at the beginning level. And then they further, the teams here, or during this stage, teams are comfortable and polite. So the team members are comfortable and they are polite with each other. Then we have another stage, which is now storming. Now, teams go through a period of conflict after formation. And why are they conflicting? Now, conflict means a clash of ideas between 2 parties. And basically, because this is business studies, it means the clash will happen in the organization. And we'll further talk about conflict in the other the other slides. And then team members here, they are conflicting or there's a clash because of their ideas. They are fighting because they want their ideas to be considered. And there may be power struggles for positions. So that can lead to a conflict because team members want to be considered for the position of being team leaders. So that's where the conflict part comes in. And again, they want their ideas to be considered on how the team is going to operate. So that's where we see the issue of conflict. And however, teams can avoid the storming stage by thinking about what we talked about earlier, which was the criteria of a successful team. Thinking about collaboration, thinking about interpersonal attitudes, which is the culture of support and motivating each other, and also thinking about communication. And what is key about interpersonal support is that what is key about interpersonal attitudes and behaviors that it is there to make sure that everyone thinks about what the team wants to achieve. So that is a way in which the teams can avoid storming, which is a stage that talks about the team going through the process of conflict. Then the other stage now, the other stage continued is norming or settling or reconciling. So what happens is that the storm is over, meaning the conflict is over. Now when the conflict is over, we see that team members come to an agreement. They come into an agreement. These are your keywords. They come into an agreement and reach understanding. And reach consensus, which is they reach understanding on how the team should operate. Furthermore, team members are reaching this understanding because their roles and responsibilities are clearly defined and accepted. It means each and every team member now understands their role and responsibilities and what should they do for the task to be completed by the team. That's why we call it the norming, settling, and reconciling, because everyone now reaches an agreement and reaches consensus, which is an understanding of how the team is going to operate. And it's because, guys, everyone understands their roles and responsibilities and what should happen for the team to achieve their goals and objectives. Then we have the performing stage, or an alternative can be working as a team towards a goal. Now, team members here are aware of the strategies and the aim of the team. So everyone here is aware of what we want to achieve as a team. So there's the focus is on achieving the aim of the team. So they have direction without interference. So team members here work alone. They also basically don't need so much interference from the leader, because these team members now have a good working relationship. And then we have another stage called adjourning, or the morning stage. Now, this is the stage where the team is about to dissolve. Now, when we are saying the team is about to dissolve, most learners make mistakes and say this is a stage whereby a team is dissolving. No, it's not dissolving. It's about to dissolve. But the task must still be completed before the project ends. So we call it morning because of a reason. Why are we calling it morning? We call it morning because some team members go through a process of stress, and they become traumatized because now they'll have to leave the group or the team and start working as individuals, or start working as on new projects. So that will be basically your stages of team development. As I said, we have forming, we have norming, we have storming, we have performing or working as a team, and we have adjourning or morning stage. So those are basically your 5 stages of team development. Then this is how they can be assessed. You may be asked to explain the stages of team development. You may be asked to explain the stages of team development, and you may be asked to identify these stages from a given scenario. So for instance, a scenario might be saying Temba Ltd, for instance, has a project, and they just wanted to start a team. And in that team, we see the team or the members of the team exchanging contacts. And from the scenario, you should be able to identify, to say, this is the forming stage. And then let me move on to Unit 2. Unit 2 now is on conflict management. Conflict management. Now, what should you understand after this Unit 2? You should be able to mention or discuss the causes of conflict in the workplace. You should be able to identify the causes of conflict from a given scenario or statement. And furthermore, you should be able to explain or advise businesses on how they should handle conflict in the workplace, or the conflict resolution steps or techniques. And then we start. Before any other thing, we have to talk about the meaning of conflict. conflict is a clash of opinions or ideas in the workplace. So what basically happens here is that there's a clash of ideas between two employees. It can be two employees in the same position or an employee and a manager. So what happens there, the clash happens in the workplace. It happens in the workplace. So when it happens in the workplace, it is to say this is business studies. So the conflict cannot happen in any other environment beside the business. And again, it's a disagreement between two or more parties in the workplace. As I said, it can be between the employee or two employees, or the employee and the manager, or the employee and a supervisor. So that is conflict. And then we move the causes of conflict. Conflict can be caused by different aspects in the organization. Now, these are some of the aspects. Firstly, the cause of conflict can be because workers may have different personalities or backgrounds. Now, because workers have different personalities or backgrounds, that will lead to conflict because they won't agree on some matters because of their line of thinking, or their cultural ways of doing things doesn't allow them to agree on some aspects. So the issue now of the different personalities will play a role. And then the lack of recognition for good work. Remember, some employees do well and they perform if they are told on the best performance, if they are acknowledged for doing very well. Because some workers, for example, may not be appreciated for working extra hours. And when that happens, they are going to be frustrated. And that will lead to conflict somehow when they are asked to do another task because they'll feel like they are not being appreciated. And then lack of clarity regarding the employee's roles and responsibilities. So what are we basically saying here? We are saying the job description has to be clear. So if the job description is not clear, it means now our employees don't understand their roles and responsibilities. Today they'll be asked to do this, and on the other day they are asked to do another task. That is going to be confusing, and it will lead to conflict because they are going to make a lot of mistakes which they are going to be reprimanded for by the manager or supervisor. So that will lead to conflict. And then lack of communication between management and workers. If there's no communication between management and workers, there's going to be what? A conflict again. And remember, there are different ways in which conflict can be caused by the business, because we cannot always blame the workers, but the business somehow can be blamed for some aspects that are not properly organized by the organization. And then a leadership style used can also pose a challenge. How so? Let us look at autocratic. When you apply autocratic leadership style, which is something you did under leadership and management, when you apply that leadership style, we are basically talking about what? We are basically talking about a leader who doesn't allow their employees to give their input. So if they don't give their input, it means they have to work as per instruction. Now, when that leader applies such leadership style to workers who have experience and who have the skill, it is going to lead to conflict because they will not want to work under instructions because they are innovative, they are creative. So that won't allow them to perform very well, which will lead to conflict between the manager or the leader and the employees. And remember that we have a lot of causes of conflict. You just have to revisit your textbook or your notes. But for the purpose of this lesson, we only chose the following causes of conflict. And then we move to conflict resolution steps. This is now how is the business going to solve conflict that has occurred between two employees or between a manager and maybe one of the employees. Now, I'll make a practical example. Let's say I'm a manager and I have to be assessed. I'm a manager called Mr. Tlaka, and there's a conflict between Maria and Tom. Now, the first thing I should do as a manager, because this guidance is to help managers solve conflict. The first thing I should do as a manager is to acknowledge that there is conflict in the workplace. And then step number 2 is to identify the causes of conflict. By referring to what we talked about earlier when I was talking about lack of communication, not unclear information on the roles and responsibilities of the employees. So basically, those can cause conflict. So who should identify those? Is the manager. Now, the manager will have to identify the cause of conflict. And then the manager will have to further arrange a meeting between conflicting employees. So the 2 employees, which in my case I said is Maria and Tom, I'll have to arrange a meeting between Maria and Tom. And I should, in step 4, each party must be given an opportunity to express his or her own opinions. I should give Maria and Tom an opportunity to do what now? To explain their opinions and their views, and give them clear opportunities so that they fully express themselves. And then after that, I do what we call, I avoid blame shifting. I avoid blame shifting. So blame shifting should be avoided so that a joint effort must be made. So as a manager, I should not blame each of the participants or any of the party that is conflicting. So I should not blame Maria, and I should also not blame Tom. And then after that, I talk to Tom and Maria and say, guys, let's brainstorm possible ways to resolve this conflict. And then brainstorming basically means Maria and Tom and me as a manager, I have to contribute to solving the conflict. And then I should provide opportunities for parties to agree on the best solution. So I should allow Maria and Tom to give me best solution. And I then have to select and implement the best solution. And then if it doesn't work out, what is the last resort? As a manager, if I have selected and implemented a solution and it doesn't work, I have to resort to what? Sourcing experts. Meaning, when I say source, it means I have to go and get experts outside the organization so that they can come and help me with solving the conflict between Tom and Maria. That is your conflict resolution steps. That is how a manager would be expected to manage conflict. And then we move to assessment. You may be asked to elaborate on the meaning of conflict, which can be 4 or 6 mark question, and then you may be asked to name or discuss the causes of conflict in the workplace, which may be a 4 mark or 8 mark question. And then you may be also asked to identify the causes of conflict from a given scenario, and then that will be indirect. And then you may be asked again to advise businesses on how they should handle conflict in the workplace. And then we also have Unit 3 now, which is dealing with grievance and difficult employees. Learning outcomes. By the end of Unit 3, you should know how to elaborate on the meaning of grievance, and you should be able to explain or discuss the correct procedure to deal with grievance in the workplace. Now, do not confuse grievance and conflict. Those are 2 different aspects and concepts. Grievance is when an employee has a problem or complaint in the workplace. So now basically the employee is complaining to the business on a particular issue. For example, grievance can be caused by such issues. Discrimination. If an employee is discriminated, they have a right to complain, and when they complain, they'll have to follow grievance procedure. And if they are unfairly treated, they can also opt for a grievance or complain. And then poor working conditions. Again, if you're working under working conditions that are unfair, you can also opt to complain so that your matter will be dealt with. And then we'll look now into the correct procedure to dealing with grievance. And we have an aggrieved employee. When we are saying an aggrieved employee, or we are basically referring to the person who is complaining. Now, this is a correct way in which you deal with grievance. An employee must verbally report. Now, when we are saying, let's say this is our employee, This is our employee. Now, our employee has to verbally, meaning they have to talk. They have to talk to say, hey, I need help about a particular working conditions. I need help. Now, the employee must verbally report the grievance to who? The supervisor. To who? The supervisor. Now, the supervisor who needs to solve the issue within 3 to 5 working days. So, let's be clear. The supervisor will have to solve the matter within 3 to 5 days. And what was the form of communication there? The form of communication was what? The communication was verbally from the employer who is complaining about a particular working condition. And then, if it didn't work out, should the employee and the supervisor fail to resolve the grievance in 3 or 5 working days, what is going to happen? The employee may take it to the next level of management. So the employee has to take it to the next level of management. Now, what is going to happen there? The employee must now write formally. Remember the first time the employee communicated verbally, but then now the employee has to write a letter. So lodge a grievance in writing or complete a grievance form. So now this will be the grievance form. This will be the grievance form for the grievance to be taken to the next level of management. Now, a grievance hearing must be held. A grievance hearing must be held. Let's say this is a table now. That we are going to have the manager on another level. We are going to have maybe the employee. Now, this is our manager. And then this is our employee. And then this is our, let's say, our supervisor. Now, what is going to happen there? A grievance hearing will be held with all relevant stakeholders. These are the relevant stakeholders: the employee, the manager, and the supervisor. They play a role of being what now? The relevant stakeholders. Why are they relevant? The employee is relevant because it's the one who communicated verbally to the supervisor. And the supervisor was involved because they communicated the matter to him or her. And then the matter was not solved. And then it was taken to, in writing, to the second or the next level of management, which was the manager now. Now the manager is involved. So they become now what? The relevant stakeholders. So a meeting will be held. Now, a grievance hearing must be held with all relevant parties present. And then minutes of the meeting must be what? Recorded. Minutes of the meeting must be recorded. And any resolution passed must be recorded on the formal grievance form. Now, and then, should the employee still not be satisfied, then he or she could refer the matter to the highest level of management. Now, even in the highest level of management, minutes of the meeting should be recorded, and the decision must be recorded on the final grievance form. Now, if still after having a meeting at the highest level of management and the employee is not satisfied, the employee then must refer the matter to CCMA, who will make the final decision on the matter. And the matter, when we are looking after CCMA, the matter can be referred to labor court on appeal if the employee is still not satisfied with the decision now that is taken by the CCMA. So if the matter didn't work out internally inside the organization, remember, we consulted the supervisor, we consulted the next level of management, and then we further consulted the highest level. And if all internal components of the business failed, then we take the matter externally to CCMA. So let me show you a diagram of what I'm talking about. So basically, the first line of communication, guys, will be the supervisor. And we know that we communicate verbally We communicate verbally to the supervisor. And then after we go to middle. Now middle, what happens there is that we also communicate using a grievance form in writing, which becomes formal. And a meeting is held with the middle manager or the next level of management. And if the employee is not satisfied, we take the matter to the highest, which becomes top level of management. And still after taking the matter to the top management, then still the employee is still unsatisfied, then we take the matter to what? CCMA. And CCMA will make a decision. After making the decision, we take the matter to the labor court of appeal. So that is basically the correct procedure of dealing with grievance. And then we move to how to deal with difficult personalities and employees. Now, this is what you should know at the end of this unit. You should be able to identify or name the following or discuss the personalities from a given scenario. You should be able to suggest or recommend ways in which businesses can deal with the above-mentioned difficult personalities in the workplace. And then you should be able to explain or suggest ways in which businesses can deal with difficult employees in the workplace. Now, we have the content here has two aspects. Ways in which the business can deal with difficult personalities. Here we are talking about personalities. Remember, in the organization, you're going to hire a diverse group of workers who come with different personalities. So the focus here is ways in which you deal, meaning the strategies to deal with those difficult personalities. The first type of difficult personality is a complainer. How do you deal with a complainer? A complainer is basically someone who likes to talk and complain about what is not happening in the organization and what is happening, who's given an opportunity and who's not given an opportunity. How should you deal with such a personality? You listen to the complaint, but you do not acknowledge them because they are not coming up with a solution in any way. And then we move to another type of difficult personality, which is indecisiveness. So this is basically a personality of a person who's not able to take decisions. So what should you do as a manager? Remember, this is a main topic called business role, and that role is going to be played by the manager. Now, the manager has to help them make the decision because I said they are indecisive. They fail to solve problems or make decisions. So as a manager, help them to make the decision and solve the problem. And then we have also some personalities that are over-agreeing. They always agree. Even if you give them a job and they know they won't complete, they will agree. So how do you deal with such a personality? Be firm with them and do not let them make promises that they cannot keep. So you teach them that, you train them that if you can't do something, just tell the person that you can't do the task on their behalf so that we avoid complaining or reprimanding you on incomplete tasks. And then negativity now. We are talking about a person who's always talking negatively about others in the organization, talking negatively about new strategies that want to be applied by the business. So how do you deal with such? You listen to that person, but do not agree with them because they are negative. They'll never help the business to achieve the main objectives and goals. Then we also have other personality types, which is experts. We also have people who are experts in the organization. And how do you deal with them? Basically, experts are people who have the master knowledge. They know how to do activities. They have the skill and the know-how. So how do you deal with them? Do not accuse them of being incorrect because they know their facts. So you should also be able to know your fact when you're about to deal with them because if you don't know your facts, they are going to sabotage you and show you that they are better than you. And then we also have quiet personalities. Quiet personalities are those individuals that just work, they don't complain, they are just quiet, and they don't respond to issues. They just quiet and follow suit to whatever the group is saying. So how do you deal with such personalities? You wait for their response and restrict the time of the discussion. And then aggressive. We also have employees now who are aggressive. These are people who always want to show aggressiveness and fighting spirit when it comes to matters in the organization. Now, allow them time to speak and blow off. And then be firm. Do not attack them because they will attack back. And you'll be basically caught in their game of attacking and wanting to fight. So allow them time to speak and blow off, and be firm. Do not attack them. Then we move now to ways in which the business generally now deals with difficult employees in the workplace. So this is now the summary or the inclusion of everyone. It can be a quiet person, it can be a negative person. We include them in the strategy. It accommodates everyone. So even if the question comes sometimes, even if you use these strategies, they're going to help you to deal with everyone who's becoming a problem in the organization, either by being quiet, by being over-agreeing on matters, and so forth. Now, how do you deal with difficult personalities? Identify the type of personality which is creating the problem. That is one. You identify them as a manager. Remember, business role under a topic called what? Team performance and conflict management. This is how you deal with conflicting workers. And then meet privately with difficult employees so that there's no distraction from other employees, because remember, some of the difficult employees, they love showing off. So if you meet in a private place, they're going to be able to discuss in a polite way if they're bringing problems to the organization. And then make intentions and reasons for action known so that the difficult employee may feel at ease. Do not show them that you are going to attack them. Just tell them that we should reach an agreement together. And then another issue is that do not judge the person, but try to understand his or her intentions and why he or she is reacting in a certain way. Remember, guys, in an organization, somehow, some employees will come and portray some attitudes because they're stressed. So when they're stressed, you should be able to understand that some behaviors are informed by particular situations that are outside the organization. And then you should be able to set a deadline for improving bad or difficult behavior. So after the meeting with the difficult employee, try to give them time so that they improve, so that there can be a better way to do things, but you should give it time. It's always important so that the bad or difficult behavior can improve. Then, this is how it can be assessed. You may be asked to elaborate on the meaning, which is basically 4 to 6 marks question. You can be asked to discuss the correct procedure to dealing with grievance. And when you are asked to discuss the procedure, you may start with any step. You should not follow some particular sequence. Any step can be allowed. And you may be asked to identify difficult personalities from a given scenario. And then furthermore, you may be asked now to give again strategies on how to deal with those difficult personalities. And then you may be asked to suggest ways in which the business can deal with difficult employees, either personalities or dealing with difficult what? Employees. Remember, difficult personalities and difficult what? Employees. Those are strategies that can be used to deal with such employees. And then, this is an essay. An essay on this topic can be, they may say, write an essay on team performance and conflict management in which you address the following aspects. You describe 4 stages of team development, and then you discuss the causes of conflict, and they might ask you to explain how businesses can handle conflict in the workplace, or suggest ways in which they could deal with difficult employees. And then that would be basically your 40-mark question. Then, recap. Today, we covered the following: criteria of a successful team, the characteristics of a successful team, the stages of team development, the meaning and the cause of conflict, the conflict resolution steps, the meaning of grievance and procedure, the meaning of grievance and procedure to deal with grievance, and ways in which the business can deal with difficult personalities, and ways in which the business can also deal with difficult employees. So that will basically be the end of our presentation, and it's always important to understand, as I said, This is under a main topic called business role. And why are we teaching you this? We are teaching you this so that one day as a manager, you are able to give guidance or criteria of a successful team. You are also able to know how teams are formed and what are the characteristics of a successful team. And you should also be able to handle conflict and handle grievance procedure and know what should happen for you to solve grievance in a proper way. And lastly, you should be able to deal with what? Difficult personalities and difficult employees in the organization as a manager. Now, all the best with your exams and keep studying. It's always important.